Huthwaite's a company that did a sales study a few years ago. A guy named Neil Rackham ran it. He wrote Spin Selling Later. One of the craziest things that came from that study, so it was 35,000 sales calls they recorded, documented every word, every question, over about a 12-year period. They expected that the people who had a lot of closing training or just closed more times would win more deals. They found out the opposite. Number one, the more times people tried to close, the less likely they were to win a deal. So the ABCs of closing is just, it's junk, right? I think Grant Cardone's a fraud, I'm just gonna say it. Okay. I know everyone, I love him as a motivator, but the stuff he teaches is literally the exact opposite of what the best salespeople in the world do. What they did find is they found some commonalities with what the best salespeople in the world did, the top 2 to 5%. And what they found is the commonality had nothing to do with closing, nothing to do with how they positioned their product. It was all about what questions did they ask their prospect. Mediocre or brand new salespeople ask situational questions. Hey, tell me about the property. How many bedrooms? How many bathrooms? You got to ask those things, right? But they could actually start to measure how many of those situational questions people asked, and they knew exactly how long they were selling for. Then the better salespeople, the mediocre salespeople, will start to ask about the problem. Hey, what are you hoping I could do for you? Why are you thinking about selling in your case, right? The best salespeople, now we're talking about the best, 5, 6, 7%. They took the problem and they asked what Neil called an implication question. All right, yeah, bills are tough. What's that mean? Well, I'm working an extra, 20 hours a week. Tough, I know how that is. My dad worked a lot too. But I'd imagine your family's just used to that by now. You get used to it, right? No. What do you mean? No, you don't get used to it. Well, you got the same amount of money you do before, right? Well, yeah, we can pay the bills now, but there's stuff I'm not doing. Well, what's that? I'm not going to soccer practice anymore. I'm not coaching the team. Is that a big deal? Yeah, that's a big deal. Let me ask you this, what's that feel like? Crummy. I feel like I'm not doing my job as a dad. See how you take something like financial distress that the average investor is just gonna go, financial distress, check. But the really good acquisition agent is gonna bring it to personal impact. And then paint that picture even more by saying, if you didn't have to deal with that, what would that be like? Here's what motivation really is. What motivation really is the distance between where you are and what that feels like, and where you can be or where you wanna be and what that feels like. Okay? I'm gonna give you an example to illustrate this. How many of you guys have, we've all bought new cars and houses, right? Anyone buy a new car or a new house and you're really excited about it, you're pumped up about it, you can't wait to get into that new house, let's say, or that new car, and you're thinking about it and you're super excited and you're anxious and it finally happens and you're on cloud 9 and now that desire for a new house or new car has gone away. Anyone been through that scenario? You want something, you anticipate, you get. Has anyone been through that scenario and then let's say a year goes by, 2 years go by, you go to a cocktail party and there's this beautiful house, or the new version of a car comes out and you get in and you take it for a test drive. All of a sudden, before one moment you're perfectly satisfied with what you have, and then you walk into that house of your dreams and within a second, you go, I gotta step up my game. How many of you, as you walked into this room this week, came in going, I'm in a mastermind, who else can pay what, I don't even know what Mike charges. Who else can pay this crazy amount of money to hang out with people? Probably 1% of the population. My game's tight, I'm buying and selling.
Crazy amount.
I'm buying and selling houses. And no, but how many of you came in here, I'm just messing with you. How many of you came in
willing
here?
to invest in themselves?
It's an
1%.
investment. How many, I'm in like 6 masterminds, so I'm all in, man. How many of you came in here feeling on cloud 9, and then you start to hear Jamie talk? And oh, what about the guy who hired like Hannity, right? And you're like, and all of a sudden that I have no motivation to really step up my game that much, or maybe I do a little bit. You start to hear some of those stories, you go, oh geez, I gotta really step it up. The distance between where you are and where you wanted to be changed, and that's where motivation lives, right? Nothing, who had that feeling? Who is now a lot more motivated than when they walked in here? Okay, and does that have anything to do with other people's stories and what they're accomplishing? Okay. So let me tell you this. You all came in here non-motivated, to an extent, right? You had a baseline. But as soon as you saw another picture-perfect scenario, something you might be capable of accomplishing, you now had an extreme level of motivation and urgency. This is where most investors miss it when they're buying houses. They're only looking for people who bring that motivation to the table, where you can actually create it by exposing the gap in between where someone is and where they want to be. Does that make sense? Yeah, most investors are looking for that 10% of their leads or so that bring the motive. They're making their sellers do all the work. No. You bring all the motivation to me, and then I'll just buy the house. With the appropriate sales process, problem, impact, picture, perfect questions, removing deal killers, that's how you take all that middle 10 or 20% that are maybes, and that's how you turn them into yeses, without ever doing anything weird or manipulative or pushy or strange or anything like that.